Over the last 36 years, the MS Readaton has been a hugely popular fundraising campaign throughout November amongst the school children of Ireland and hopefully fostering a love of reading, but also raising funds for MS Ireland. I'm delighted to say that we have Paula Flynn today, who's the RT sports journalist, but who's also written a number of great books, Go Johnny Go, King Henry, and the newly released Josh the Flyer, which we're recommending as an MS Readathon read for November. Could you tell us about the new book, Paul? I have to say my son can't wait to get his hands on it.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear it. Thanks for having me on, Fergal. Yeah, so the Irish Sporting Legends series is a series of books that I've written with Gill Books. Our first one was Go Johnny Go about Johnny Sexton, and then King Henry about the great Henry Shefflin. And now delighted to say my new book out is Josh the Flyer. It's the story of Josh van der Flier, the Leinster and Ireland rugby player. And of course, he was named the World Rugby Player of the Year last year. So who better to have than Josh's great story? And it starts off basically with his childhood growing up in Wicklow, his first steps on the rugby pitch, his school days. He moved on to Wesley College and just a few stories from school there and how he got on the rugby pitch. And then just his steps all the way through the Leinster Academy, his breakthrough into the Leinster team. And then, of course, for Ireland, all the way through to his Grand Slam success and just the story of him being crowned World Rugby Player of the Year.
You had a great campaign. Just before we come on, we were just saying you were with RT for a bit of the World Cup. So you were there for the great game, the South Africa game. So that must be very special, I'd say, was it?
Yeah, it's one of the most fantastic things about my job, and privileged really to get to go to some of these great occasions. And it was such a special night in Paris. I think one of the things that made it so special, not least the occasion, was I think there was a security warning about the fans, getting into the stadium, and the Irish fans showed up so early for the match, which doesn't normally happen. And I've never before heard the fields of Athenry going up from the fans in the warm up, so everyone was really up for that night. The atmosphere was electric, and the game itself was just so intense from start to finish, really, and it could have gone either way. And I think it's just so disappointing to see how it all ended up for the Irish team to go out at the quarterfinal stage again. I think it's just very unfortunate for this group of players. They obviously hoped for so much more, but yeah, that was a special night in Irish rugby.
I know, but it must make it special for you being at something like that, particularly doing the book, which I presume that you work closely with Johnny and Josh, while you're preparing the book, so it must make you feel very involved with the team then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're willing them on, I suppose, especially this time because we had Josh's book coming out just at this time. It would have been fantastic to be coming off the back of a World Cup win. That's what we were all hoping for, obviously. But I mean, look, he played so well in the tournament, and he's such a fantastic guy. He was so great to give up his time to tell me his story, and he's really happy with the final outcome, which is great. And we work with the Dyslexia Association of Ireland, and that means the book is just written in a certain way to make it accessible to reluctant readers, and Josh has been really supportive of that as well. So it's fantastic to have him on board and to be able to tell his story.
And what's great about your books, I think personally anyway, is that, like I say, my son reads it, and it's kind of what he's read the other two, and probably the only two, so it's brilliant that you've got I suppose they're targeted maybe at young boys. A lot of girls are reading, but now for reading, getting boys to read and get into the habit of it. And that's what the Readathon is as well, is getting young people used to reading and realizing how brilliant it is and how much fun it is.
Yeah, like I remember when I went to school, the school library wasn't exactly stacked with books that would jump out to an 8, 9, 10-year-old boy. We had a lot of kind of older books, adult books, really, that you were looking at, and it's fantastic for young readers now that they have such an array of options. You go to any bookshop, you go to any library. There's just so many fantastic stories. But all the research shows that girls around that age, between sort of 7 and 12, are much more interested in reading, and boys can be a little bit less enthusiastic, let's say, about going to the library or going to the bookshop. So the idea of the books really was to tell the stories of great Irish sports stars, so that to kind of, I guess, tap into the love of sports for young people, boys and girls, and to get them into reading, I suppose, to read their stories. And thankfully, I've had such great feedback over the first two books, and hopefully now for Josh's book as well, that parents have sent me notes and letters just saying, look, it's the first time my little boy ever read a book from start to finish on their own, and that's just fantastic for me to hear, and I've got some feedback from young people too, how much they've enjoyed the books, asking for other ones, you know. So it's just it's brilliant. It's the reason I write the books, and I love hearing it. And the idea then, I suppose, is that it'll foster a lifelong love of reading for the people, and they'll go on to, you know, to read, to become adult readers, and get the joy of books for the rest of their lives.
And I presume you always had that love of reading from a young age yourself, did you?
Yeah, I was definitely a reader. Yeah, I loved. I suppose I was sort of lucky from my generation. I guess there wasn't so many distractions and tablets and all the rest of it, you know. But I was always reading a book, and I loved. I loved all the different kind of stories that we had when we were younger. Like Enid Blyton would have been big, Roald Dahl, all the classics that are still there. You know, I read all those Secret Seven and Famous Five books from Enid Blyton, and all the Roald Dahls I love as well. And I think probably my favorite book when I was a kid was probably Fantastic Mr. Fox, the Roald Dahl story. And I think it's hard to remember fully, but I'm pretty sure that was the first book I read. It's sort of real book, let's say, without pictures, you know, from start to finish, all by myself. So that one definitely sticks out in my mind. But I was always reading, yeah.
And for the MS Readathon, you know, it's over the years, it's been going now 36 years, and Roald Dahl actually opened it, the very first one, in 1988. But now we encourage people of all ages to take part. So I'm just curious to know, what would be the first sports book that would come into your head if I asked you to recommend one for someone in November?
I always say that it's kind of hard. Like there are so many fantastic sports books, and I know we always encourage people to buy Irish sports books, and there are so many great ones out, and you'll see them all this Christmas, brilliant ones. But for me, one of my favorite sports books that I've ever read is Andre Agassi's book, Open. I'm not like the world's biggest tennis fan, but it's just, for a sports story, it's fantastic. The honesty in it, the detail, and I think it's the reason I recommend it a lot as one of my favorite books is that it transcends sport completely. So whether you're interested in sport or not, it's just a fantastic story. His life story is just incredible. Growing up, his relationship with his father, his career in tennis, and just everything he achieved. And it's just raw and honest, and it's really, really well written. So that's definitely probably, I mean, it gets recommended a lot, but I think definitely it's one of the standout sports books that I've ever read anyway.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. I just want to remind people that there's still plenty of time to join for the MS Readathon, and the website is msreadathon.ie, so anybody can go there. And I also, again, I really, really recommend Just the Flyer and all your books, actually, for anybody that's looking for a book to read. So thank you so much, Paul.
Thanks, Fergal. Thanks for having me on.